Okay, no place to start other than King Khan. Obviously, I can't talk about it, but you're insistent that he's the first man we talk about.
It's unbelievable, like what he did yesterday. Like we were talking about it last week. He basically hasn't hurled. Has he hurled hardly this year, barely?
Probably in April, and that was about it.
Small bit in April.
He scored 1-5 that day.
Yeah, wouldn't have picked up really a hurl. Probably would have picked up a hurl maybe Friday night in training. That's about the first time in
You're getting that now with me.
4 or 5 months. And then he comes 2-3 yesterday. And it's not even 2-3, it's like 2 goals within 5 minutes. He was just so sharp. And I don't know if I've ever seen someone that clinical that literally if he gets a one-on-one chance, you nearly can lift the green flag. Like he doesn't. It's the only chances he misses are ones where there's a couple of defenders coming in around him, and it's going to be tough to score anyway. If there's a higher than 50% chance of him scoring, he invariably scores.
He missed the one-on-one yesterday.
After scoring 2 goals before that.
I'm being fierce harsh, but I think it does come back to again like there is such a buzz about him, and he's such a fantastic player. I do wonder, like Mark Schutte came back and Con played yesterday. I think everyone would love to see what that would do to Dublin hurling.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like Mark Schutte didn't feature at all this year, basically. Because
he hasn't played hurling for Dublin since 2016, between going over to football and being injured.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Like and it was great to see Paul actually back fit yesterday, because he's had his injury troubles. God knows. But yeah, Con, it's just the buzz he creates about it. What would the two of them do inside in the forward line? Like that, people. That's what you will always go back to. Dublin are just missing maybe that marquee forward or a couple of like lads that can really, really hurt teams. Con would certainly do it. Like Pádraig Farley had it on Twitter yesterday. Like, is he the best dual player since Jimmy Barry Murphy? Is he better than Jimmy Barry Murphy? He doesn't have All-Ireland medals, one should we say, with hurling. He hasn't played inter-county hurling. Imagine we are having this conversation about a fella who has not played senior inter-county hurling. It's phenomenal.
Do you know who should also be mentioned in that conversation about JBM? Ray Cummins.
Oh, unbelievable.
I think he might even have more one than JBM.
Brian Murphy as well from Cork. Brian Murphy has all-stars in hurling and football as well, and several all-stars.
Was it Liam Kearns is the Offaly man who had a football all-star one year and hurling the next back in the 80s?
He played the 2 finals in 81, won the hurling and then was beaten in the football,
Okay, so Coola beating Kilmacud Crokes in one of the quarter-finals.
A fair beating too, by all accounts in the end.
13 points in the end, St. Bridget's had beaten Nafina in the quarter-final in the game just beforehand. To be honest, I thought Nafina might win that, but I've been wrong all over the place this weekend because I thought Lucan would beat Crave Kieran. Crave Kieran went and they won by 4 points for a finish. And then in the other game, St. Vincent's knocked out the champions Ballyboden.
It's unreal, Like it's amazing. They got them to extra time.
Boden were leading more or less the whole way through. And led by John Heatherton, it must be said.
20 points.
Yeah, I think he got a couple from play and a couple of beauties from play, but he really punishes you from frees. But Vincent's went to town in extra time. It was like 1-8 or 1-9 to a point. So
you would have thought, like with Boden's, with the depth they have in their squad, that they nearly would have pushed on. But maybe, like, I don't know, Vincent just seemed to get an extra lease of life or something in extra time, and it's a fair beat in extra time. It's funny how that happens. Isn't it? A team gets 3 or 4 points up in extra time. Saw it with the Cork minor footballers against Galway in extra time, and the game, it can be just a completely different game.
Well, you're so tired, I think, in extra time that if you take a blow like that psychologically, it can just knock you down into your boots, and then you're already tired physically. So it's a compound thing.
Those 20 points though, there's something about Parnell Park and massive tallies. John Heatherton had the 20 points. Kyle Kiley had that stupid amount of scores for the Offaly 20s earlier on this year as well. I don't know, is it because it's so tight, and if you get a free 45 yards in your own half, you have a fair chance of scoring as well.
It's a great place to play. Now, the problem is when it gets particularly mucky at the wrong time of year, it's a septic place to play. But when it's in the height of summer and the ground is fast and all that, the grass was a little bit long, I have to say. But other than that, it's a lovely little ground.
It's going to get a fair amount of traffic over the next while.
Like there are 2 football matches I think being played there Friday night. God knows how many other games. And between both codes maybe even. And
I think they just keep it for the small ball, you know.
Crave Kieran beat Lucan 3-14 to 2-13. Crummy was up, I think midfield. Chris Crummy scored 2-1, and his brother Paul won a nice bit of ball in the forwards. But Crave Kieran, they're used to the ball, very, very good. I was impressed with Billy Ryan, dangerous little left-hander. Kieran McGowan now, he's a big burly man. but he causes hassle. If you get the ball into him, you know, he's, you know, trying to get around him is a big issue.
I saw bits of it. Francis Asenga was named 24 or 25 and started, and he's very, very effective. I remember playing Offaly under 14 against him years ago, like, and he's an absolute beast. Like, he's very hard to handle.
Yeah, if he runs at you, you're in bother. Yeah. So just again, the semi-finals there are going to be Coola against St. Vincent's and Bridget's against Crave.
There's really nothing to stop Coola. Let's call a spade a spade. That the quarter-final was the match to win. They're going to be very, very, very hard beaten. Despite you playing it down in every way possible, they're going to be very, very hard beaten from here on.
Well, can I get Con out of that full forward position?
He said in an interview last week, he's like, me and the Saint fighting out for the full forward position. He's like, this is the greatest trolling of all time, like.
And I was sitting beside him as he's doing it. Right, Kilkenny Championship, there was plenty going on between quarterfinals, Shield finals, league finals, relegation, the whole lot mixed in together. So Village against Danesford, so James Stevens won that handy enough, it must be said. Like, just looking at who got the scores, St. Kieran's sixth year, Owen Guilfoyle, he scored heavily. Keane Kenny, Luke Scanlon 1-3, Conor Brown was centre forward and 1-2. So I'd heard from a rival player down there that he was going to be centre back and Owen Larkin was going to be sweeper. But
I think he was trying to suggest to them what they should do, maybe possibly
what he would like.
But by all accounts, that's the way they played it. And Jackie came on full forward. I think Jackie's been carrying a knock, and he came on full forward, set up a goal, I believe, as well. They had a fair spread of scorers, and even with those two young fellas, they're both 6 years in Kieran's. Owen Guilfoyle and Keane Kenny, so they've injected a fair bit of youth, and they're starting to probably come right just when it matters. They're in the quarter final now, decent draw in the quarter final, which we'll go into in a second, but yeah, they're starting to come right at the right time. By all accounts, we talked about Richie Hogan in last week's show. Struggled a bit yesterday, just physically, maybe just. You'd probably have to question. You'd have to question, and we did last week, whether his body's going to be able to stand up to another year inter-county, given the year he's had, the back problems, now the knee problems as well. But it should be an interesting few months over the winter with him.
Yeah, but when you start to get injuries at a little bit, he's not all that old. He's 31, maybe turning. I think probably just turned 31.
Yeah.
But geez, some amount of injuries, and it's hard to reverse it. When one thing goes, then there seems to be a knock-on effect.
Yeah, and when your back is the fulcrum of everything, really. When your back starts having problems, with your hamstrings, your knees as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Do we hear anything over the winter, or whether he is coming back? I'm sure he'll want to come back.
I'd say Ballyhale had a sombre enough night last night. There were no celebrations.
I don't think so.
They got pasted by Ballyhale. Ballyhale were 21 points up after 25 minutes, and I saw John Knox tweeting, Ballyhale 5-13, Pats 0-6 at half time. Shamrocks literally walking the ball into the net. Owen Cody with 1-4 and Mullen with 2-1 at that point. So.
I've seen they are like that. I saw that against Navanna last year in the Leinster semi-final. They literally were walking the ball into the net. Every time they got the ball inside the 45, they were just hungry for goals. And again, if you're talking about a team coming right at the right time, Ballyhale are doing that again.
Well, all their players probably would have rested up throughout the summer, because they had a long winter playing the All-Ireland club, and you can't. I know some of the lads obviously went back in with Kilkenny, like Colin Fennelly and TJ Reid, Joey Holden, but I'd say the other lads were more or less given the summer off and told recharge the batteries. They're probably at maybe 80% of where they can be at the moment, and they'll probably build.
Like Fennelly had a micro fracture in his knee, he said as well. He said he went in for what he thought was a simple enough job on his knee and ended up having to get surgery or something. So he kind of said he wasn't going to push it too much to get back, but I'd say he's not far off getting back. Actually, not sure if he featured. I don't think he did, but he's very close to featuring. And as we've seen before, he doesn't have to have played a load of games to be very effective.
No, was it something like 2011? He did maybe one full training match, and he was hurt of the year.
Sorry, now for a club thing, you might get away with that. For a county level, that's obscene. Like really.
Yeah. Ballyragged might be taken over by Fifi after this. It's just not the way they want it to go. Castlecomer against Bennett's Bridge. So it was expected to be tight. Comer won by 12.
12, yeah. Like Bennett's Bridge were in the county final last year. By all accounts, David Blanchfield, who played under 20 for Kilkenny this year, was one of their better players. Brother Liam, younger brother. I think he fell. I don't know. It was either foot golf or they were playing a game of five-a-side for a team bonding thing the week before. He fell and broke his arm, and he would have been a massive loss. He'd be big, strong. He's about 6'3" or 4" wing back. He would have been driving him forward. He was a big loss. Jason Clear got sent off as well.
So if that's the two of them out for the relegation playoff, that's big.
Yeah, they still should have enough to beat Ballyragged, particularly Ballyragged going so poorly. But it definitely would level the playing field a small bit, yeah. But like the Bridge are after making strides the whole way up to junior, intermediate, senior. The last thing they'll want is to go back down. They'll just any sort of result in that relegation final just to stay up and down.
Greg Ballyhale and Mulnavat drew. Then, so that's obviously going to a replay. Dixborough beat O'Loughlin's in the league final after extra time. Andy Gaffney was the super sub for the Borough. He scored 1-3 off the bench. Bill Sheehan 1-5. Not bad.
Bill Sheehan, of course, was missing for the All Ireland final that time as well. Like, not saying, like, obviously there was it was 14 points or whatever it was in the end, but
how many?
I think it was 14, nearly a point a man actually. So he'd be mad for Rodham. Obviously he was yesterday. Wouldn't place too much stock in that league final by all accounts.
And the same with because both teams are through to the quarters anyway. Nice to have that title. The Roar beat Clara in the Shield final. So the team's gone then: Bennett's-Bridge, Danesfort and Ballyragget. The quarterfinals aren't for a couple of weeks now, but just to call them out, they're O'Loughlin's against Greg Ballycallan or Mulnavat, the Roar against James Stevens, Clara against Ballyhale, tasty enough.
That is tasty now, yeah.
And Dixborough against Ayrone.
That's tasty enough too. Now the bottom two, you'd imagine the village would come through in the top half, and you'd imagine the two games at the bottom, Erin's Own and I can't think of the other team that they're playing, and the Ballyhale Clara game would be very, very interesting. Erin's Own and Dixborough would be very tight. Yeah,
Dixborough won the county title a couple of years ago. It feels like they might have slipped back a small bit in terms of Ballyhale are obviously brilliant and just brought through some brilliant young players at the right time. They might have the right mix. James Stevens, Luke Scanlon up front as well. You know, they've plenty of talent there. We already mentioned Conor Brown.
Ryan Brazel, Matt Root. They've a well-rounded team. In fairness, David Walton's a sub as well. They have a good side, I
probably wouldn't normally go into the intermediate championship in Kilkenny, but I'll just read out what the quarterfinals are. St Martin's against Young Ireland's, Thomastown against Glenmore, St Lacton's against Donegagan, and Tullaroan against Fenians. Of course, Tullaroan against the Fenians is Tommy against JJ.
Yeah.
Hard not to look
That's going to be interesting now, in fairness.
We might tip down to that one.
We might do. Tullaroan beating in the final last year, of course, having held a big lead the whole way through against arch rivals Greg Ballycallan, so they'd be mad to get back to that stage. But Fenians were seen it only a couple of years ago. That's a tasty tie now,
Pádraig Walsh must be doing untold at intermediate
level. He scored a stupid amount from centre forward one day. I think he might have nearly hit double figures in one of the games from play.
So that you'd imagine if he's in the forward line, JJ Delaney will have to go on him.
Yeah.
And JJ is famous for stopping good players over the years.
That's true,
She's on an intermediate field when you'd imagine to be more space because
Pádraig Walsh rocking in an intermediate match.
Stop the lights. Offaly Championship. No, we didn't preview it last week. You sneakily sort of.
I totally forgot about it, to be honest with you, because there was so much else going on. But couple of big stories. We beat Shinrone on Saturday evening in the quarter final, which is
Burr now, in case anyone
which is a big result for us. Shinrone had, I think it was either 17 or 18 wides and went through 3 different free takers, which was big.
You'd have to say Shinrone, this is a team that this year their players decided not to go in with the county panel because they wanted to give the Offaly title a rattle, and there's something about it just doesn't sit easy that they kind of obviously the county was going nowhere last year, or in the past year it's been going backwards. But for the players to just decide, you're almost putting your neck on the block by saying we think and obviously a club is where it begins and ends, but that they're going to not commit to the county because they just probably feel that it's not worth it. Maybe they've got their own reasons, but that's how it feels, and it comes across poorly, especially when you don't back it up by winning the county title.
They would have had several lads involved in Offaly squads over the last 10 years really. I think only 2 lads were called back in this year, but just for there to be no representation would have probably left a fairly sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially with how poorly we were going. You know what I mean? Will
Michael Fennelly be looking for them back, I wonder?
Well, he was at their last game against St Rynas. He was up in Clarine at that game, so he probably would have picked out a few there. If he was at the match on Saturday evening, he probably wouldn't have picked out too many, to be honest with you. But it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, Coolderry, they're gone, dumped out by Belmont.
Well dumped out, to be fair. There was a massive crowd in Brennan's Park in Borough yesterday. I must mention as well, our neighbours Carrick upset Drumcullen in the Senior Hurling Championship B quarter final, 4 goals. So they're in the semi final. Probably wouldn't have expected to be, but I was hounded in St Brendan's Park to give us a shout out yesterday. Let's give them a shout out yesterday, so I'll do that. But Coolderry were dumped out, and dumped out fairly comprehensively. So Belmont beat them with 10 points. Belmont have beaten them for the first time ever in championship in the group stages. Now they backed it up in a big knockout game. People, including myself, would have thought Coolderry are just coming right after all the drama earlier on in the year.
Yeah, manager stepping away after.
So Belmont the only team left with a possibility of doing a double. So they're in the senior football semi-final this weekend. They're playing Edenderry, and now they're in the senior hurling semi-final. They're in the last 2 senior hurling semi-finals, beating a point by the eventual county champions. And I know that you could say like they should have probably won both games. It's not like, you know, oh, we're beating a point in the quarter final by the team that won the county title. We should have won the county title. They should have been in the county final in one of the last 2 years and would fancy themselves next year. Kinnity also got relegated.
Yeah, Ballyhale.
Yeah, like Kinnity would be like one of the most traditional clubs in Offaly, like home of the Corrigans and Pat Delaney and the great Johnny Flaherty as well. It's a big one for them to go down, and they could maybe struggle to get back up as well. But Ballyhale have had loads of underage success, so they'd be very happy. It was after extra time. They'd be very happy because they would see it as a going up and down and up again it would have been a step backwards. Whereas now they're up there, there's going to be a team coming up from Senior B next year, and they'll fancy themselves chances of staying up and maybe getting to the knockout stages next year. And
your man, Offaly legend Gary Hannafy.
Oh, this is brilliant! Yeah, it was actually on the Paddy Power like Snapchat or something like that. They had a picture of the back of an Offaly jersey, number 8. And you could just see the back of his head, and I was like, I definitely know that fella. There's only one like 6'5" lad I know that would be wearing that jersey. And it turned out it was Gary Hannafy from Ballyhale. He was at the match in Japan in Yokohama yesterday, the rugby. Yeah,
still and he's hurling in Singapore.
Yeah, he's flying it. I was out there actually when I was working with the GPA. I was out on the All-Star trip in Singapore, and it was like 11-a-side game. They played the All-Stars, and some of the local players played, but Gary played absolutely went to town.
No doubt.
We're still missing his paw and Burr. Like we don't even know if that.
Cork Championship. Like I was watching them on RT the other night. The mother actually made me turn the channel and wouldn't let me see the second one. I don't know if she wanted to watch like
the mother.
She wanted to watch America's Got Talent or something like that. So I was there flicking away on the phone trying to watch other games. But horrific weather. Fairly low scoring. Like the Glen Rovers beat Newtown Shandram 112 to 14 points. Scramble goal from David Cunningham, bare in the square. Horgan actually missed the penalty that Cunningham also won. And at the end of the game, one of the Newtown Shandram subs, he came in from the right hand side, had a chance 1-on-1 against the goalie, did the right thing trying to go low underneath him, hit the side netting. Getting 3 points in it, you know, for a goal in a game like that could have turned it.
In those conditions as well, particularly there's not too many days where Hoggy misses a penalty and has an off day.
He tried to skim it off the ground, and I don't know, it just didn't pick up pace, or it was too close to the keeper, or what have you. Immakilly beat Sarsfields 117 to 10 points. Sars finished with 13 men. Sure, like the semi-finals now are Immakilly against St Finbarrs and Carricktool against Glen Rovers. Now Glen Rovers would definitely be expected to come through against.
Immakilly definitely be expected to come through as well.
Yeah, like the Bars are actually fighting on 2 fronts because they're playing against county champions Nemo in the football quarter final again. So just like Belmont, trying to fight on 2 fronts.
Yeah, tough going. Week on week.
But at the same time, like if you're ever playing for a team who play week on week, sometimes there's nice little momentum rolling from game to game. I remember in 2015 when we first won a county title with Coola, we played 6 games in 7 weeks, and it was great. It was like you always had another game coming.
True, yeah. And if you're winning, it's great. I always think it's funny though when the run comes to an end, the managers say, just took its toll. Whereas it had been brilliant up until that point. It's just when you lose, it took its toll.
Momentum versus taking its toll.
That's why I always love it with the qualifiers. So important to get momentum throughout the qualifiers. You know, you can't beat momentum.
But nobody actually has an answer to why this happens. It's just there are a myriad of reasons that a team can hit the wall. Tipperary Championship this weekend. The county champions Clonalty Rossmore, they're still in the Senior Hurling Championship now. They didn't come through their group in the county championship, but you can come back into the county championship by winning your division. So they're into the west. But they're after getting a last gasp point from Jimmy Maher to get a replay against Aero Gannicarty. That was down in Bansha. So we'll see what happens there. In North Tip then, the final is going to be between Killadangan and my hometown Piarsaigh, who they both came through high score in semi-finals. So Paul Flynn scored the goal for Killadangan as they beat Temple Derry 128 to 222.
That was a 60-minute game?
Yeah. That's huge score. And then there was must have been 80 minutes and more. No, I think it went to 2 periods of extra time between Piarsaigh and Burgess. So Conor Kenny got a goal in the first period of extra time, and Burgess eventually won 132 to 224.
That's the job.
That's
the job. You get your entertainment there.
Yeah.
Your €15 weekend pass. I tell you what, if you're at that game and a couple more, you got your value.
Stephen Murray, he scored 18 points for Burgess. Do you know that both of those games were in Nina, and sure, I was reared more or less in McDonough Park in Nina. And my memory is always the lad who, you know, during the height of the summer when most of the championship matches be going on, especially during the era of no qualifiers, that there'd be a lad going around selling ice cream and he'd always be roaring, "Ices, ices, get your ices." Did you have that up in Brendan's Park?
Ices.
Ices, is it?
God only knows he didn't know what was going to happen about 15 or 20 years there.
He was too lazy to actually say ice cream, he just went with ices.
Did we have that?
Well, he had it in the cardboard box and he'd be walking around waving the maxi twist or whatever it was. But just to run through the other results in Tip at the weekend, Kappa White 220, Golden 224, that was the West Intermediate final.
Golden, by all accounts, we got a tweet in there saying Golden are back.
Golden Kilfeacle. Yeah. What a name. Like some of the Tipperary club names I think are unbelievable. Yeah, Ballyluby, Castlegrace. Unreal.
I like Latin Cullen actually.
Yeah.
Big fan of that. Nicky's club, Nicky English.
Yeah. Upper Church in the mid semi-final. Upper Church 223, McCarthy Burris 316, so Upper Church are through. And the other result that I hadn't read was Drum 20 points, JK Brackens 115. That's a little bit tighter than I thought. So in the mid-final now you're going to have Upper Church against Drum. So that's everything in Tipperary. Then Wexford, Glyn Barntown 119, St Martin's 219. It's a lovely St Martin's team, but I actually thought that they'd win this a bit more comfortably than that.
Yeah, listen, Glyn have been thereabouts the last couple of years, so I'd say they're probably just happy enough to get through. 119 is a lot to concede, but I'd say they're just happy enough to get through, to be honest with you. On a weekend where the champions went out, went out fairly comprehensively.
Beaten by 11 points by Fern St Aidan's. Paul Morris's club, so geez, that's a fair. Some of the other quarterfinals were refixed, so for the 28th, so Rapparee Starlights against Rathnure and Shelmaliers against St Anne's.
What we were saying there about playing week on week, though, a lot of those clubs, particularly like the Shells, will come under pressure now with, you know, playing senior football or playing intermediate football as well. So the Martins are like that as well, so they'll be happy that their game wasn't postponed. At least they have a normal schedule, shall we say, the whole way in now.
You had a lad onto you about the League Championship.
Yeah, no, Sean Collery was on to me about Camross. Camross played 4 games across 4 different codes last weekend, and if you just check it there, actually he has retweeted in again, I think, to us there this morning. I think they won 3 of them, as far as I know. They won 3 of them, I think.
Well, let's see what
the other one might have been a draw.
He tweeted Camross winning senior quarterfinal Friday, then 3 finals in O'Moore Park on Saturday. Intermediate and senior camogie followed that even by a big win in the intermediate hurling final. What 24 hours, #hard work. So that's what Sean Collier says.
That's some going, in fairness. That's some weekend for a club, because you know, like things can fall apart very, very easily. Like that could have been them. It could be in the year over with everything without any silver, and the senior hurlers out, whereas now they have like 3 pieces of silver and the senior hurlers are still going for 3 in a row as well.
Yeah, the Wicklow Championship, Bray 111, St Pat's 13 points.
That was played in atrocious conditions apparently as well, atrocious conditions.
And then Glenealy beat Carnew by 4 points. Bosco O'Neill is still on the go.
Yeah, young Bosco and old Bosco as well. Yeah, I would have, when I was in with Wicklow, Bosco was actually called back in. Bosco Senior, he played in goals in a Kyo Cup match, because Wicklow had entered 2 teams in the Kyo and Walsh Cup, 1 in each, and they were obviously caught for bodies, so Bosco came back. He's some man to stay going. Like father and son now going for 3 in a row in the Wicklow Hurling Championship. Like, it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal achievement, really. Like
I'd say it must have been 7 or 8 years ago. The first year that I played with Kula in 2011. I think I was marking him for a while. We had a challenge match, Kula against Glenealy, and I think back then he was considered old. He wasn't far off 40.
He wouldn't like that now.
No,
he wouldn't like that. Yeah.
But he's still hurling young.
Lovely lefty, and they actually had him out. I'm not too sure where he's playing this year, but the year before last, they had him out midfield, like, and it's kind of smart in a way, loose ball, kind of moving around. If he gets a ball in a bit of space, he's going to put it over as well. Yeah,
just have him as a spare man around the middle, just say screen in front of the centre back and go to town there, beat a quarterback.
See, the thing is, with a fella like that, when you have a lad that's really, really talented like that, but maybe the legs are fading a small bit, if everybody else around him is aware of that and just says, we're going to have to work a bit harder, but just get the ball to him and he will do what I can't do, or do what you probably can't do either. He'll do the really hard part, is put the ball over the bar.
Louth Championship, it was St Feckin's lost to Nave Moneen, so Nave Moneen won the Louth senior title, and Killian Whelan tweeted that it was former Confi player Paul Challoner who captained Naomh Moneen to that title. And you were going to tell us about Darren Gagan.
Yeah, we got I got a few things wrong last week. I think I said Feckins were going for back-to-back titles or something like that, which they weren't. They hadn't won it in a couple of years. But Darren Gagan, who's one of their best players, he's a Waterford IT student. His brother Ronan was man of the match when they won it, I think 2 years ago. And Darren, by all accounts, was man of the match yesterday. He hit 9 points, 8 frees, and he's a Waterford IT student. And I read an interview in the Dundalk Democrat where they asked him like, what's it like to be a loud hurler, and he's saying whatever. He's down in Waterford IT, and he said they were going around in a circle asking where are you from, and one lad is like James Stevens, Kilkenny. Then it comes to him and it's like loud, and it's just like lads are almost like a double take or whatever. Yeah. I think he was the fresher captain last year. By all accounts, a very good hurler, represented Loud in the Puck Fada this year as well. Yeah. There's an interesting actually thing in the programme. I love when counties just go a little bit extra with programme and give you a bit of the devil is in the detail, like it's all about the detail. So there was pen picks for all the different players, and there was one for Paddy Reddy from St. Feckins, favourite sporting moments, 13-man Moorfield beating Selbridge in Kildare County final, and then his sporting hero, JJ Okocha, former Bolton and Nigeria midfielder. Like, where do you get that? Like,
so good they named him twice.
Yeah, like where do you get that? That's quality. You love when boys think outside the box. The Clare GA actually did a really good thing for. We had talked about it. They did like your dream 7-a-side.
Yeah.
And no matter, they'd ask a different player, and it's just like you want to just even find out who their heroes are, find out something a little different about them.
Didn't one lad have like all 7 players as Tony Kelly?
Yeah, that was right. I think it was Peter Duggan actually. Yeah.
And didn't actually, now that you mentioned those programs about Clare in it one day, there's a minor player and his name is Storm Devaney. Isn't it something like one of his parents is from Belgium? I don't know if Storm is a name that's used there.
Good one,
yeah, Storm Devaney, what a name. Kildare Championship, Kyle Dove 115, Ard Clock 114. Mega beard for Mark Lynham in that game.
Yeah,
the greatest beard ever seen.
It's unbelievable. Like coming out every side of his helmet, the back, the sides, the front, everywhere.
Like Cousin It with a helmet on.
Yeah, exactly.
Check Piarsaigh O'Maidig's Twitter if you want to see what that looked like. It's incredible. Naas beat Éire Óg by 5 points in the other semi-final, and they have no county title since 2002.
Yeah, and everyone knows like Naas have done really well they compete in Kilkenny and a lot of the underage competitions, done really well. Kildare under 20s done well and have done well in recent years. They've done really well at underage and backbone really by Naas. So they'll be hoping to finally get a senior county title. Like, it's a long time. Like 17 years is a long time for them.
Didn't Kildare have an underage win over Offaly?
They did. Sorry, minors this year. Yeah. So there'll be a lot of those guys would have played come up through the ranks in the last couple of years. So they're in relegation trouble in the football, or they were anyway. So maybe attention will shift more to the hurling this year.
Just looking briefly at the Waterford Intermediate Championship, Martin Delaney tweeted in, Ballyhale, very small rural place, backbone by the Bennetts, back in the Western Waterford Intermediate final after a close semi-final victory over Onrin, will be favourites against Ardmore, winners faced Eastern champions. Then we'll have to finish up with the Limerick.
Ballyhale's tiny, by the way. Ballyhale is tiny.
Shane Bennett, Stephen Bennett, Kieran
Bennett as well,
and what's their father's
name? Pat Bennett, he's actually funny, like he's a selector with Davy in Wexford.
Yeah.
It's mad, like. And he was a selector with him in Waterford as well. There was an evening this year where Waterford were playing Munster Championship and Shane and Stephen and Kieran were all involved, and Pat was with Wexford the same evening. It was
mad. Limerick Championship then, semi-finals, you had Na Piarsaigh against Kilmallock. So Na Piarsaigh won by 5 points, and then in the other one you had Patrickswell beating Doon 215 to 14 points. And Na Piarsaigh to do with 14 men, like Ronan Lynch was sent off early in the second half on a straight red card. They didn't have Shane Dowling. I watched an interview with Michael Ryan, the former tip manager, who's over in Piarsaigh afterwards, and he was talking about not having Peter Casey either. Now, he said he'll be straight back in, but Dowling's out long term with a knee issue. And the Piarsaigh haven't had their own field for a while.
That's right, yeah.
So Mick Ryan was talking about how they had great offers from other people. They've been training in Rathkeale and St. Patrick's, and they had other offers from other clubs around. Clubs are very good that way.
Yeah. It's a very new look team. New jersey, new team. I looked through. I only got back to the house around 20 minutes to go, and I was looking through it, and I find it hard to pick out lads that I knew actually.
Yeah,
like the full forward absolutely went to town. Can't think.
William Henn.
He was hitting the freeze as well. Obviously, you had Adrian Mike Casey, Adrian Breen as well, but a lot of new faces like that just shows you. And we talked about. I did think Kilmallock would give them a big game. Obviously, Jamie Wall was with Kilmallock as well. I did think to give him a tight game, But Na Piarsaigh, the strength and depth to do what they did, missing what they were missing, is some achievement.
What did you think of that Peter Casey incident a few weeks back now? Like there was a Snapchat or an Instagram video that went out, and then people just decided that it looked like it was sort of, you know, an illegal substance that he was after putting in his pocket. Afterwards then he came out and clarified that that was changed, that he was putting in his pocket, and he actually put out a drugs test, the results of a drug test. That's an insane level of, you know, for things to go to in club level, I think that's insane. Club and county level, I suppose, as a county player. But, you know, by all accounts, what I hear is if anyone was going to be, you know, messing with that sort of stuff, he's the last sort of lad that you think would do it. But it's mad, the sort of scrutiny that are on players now.
It's a trial by social media now, isn't it? Really, like the most.
People judge the jury beforehand.
Well, people are very like the GA. I love the GA, but it's terrible in the sense that like I've never had any trouble with it because I don't drink, so I've never had any issue with it. But like if I did like enjoy a pint and I was down in the pub even for like a quiz on a Friday night a couple of weeks before a match, and anyone like people would actually be asking you like, "What are you doing here?" So like, you're not allowed to be here. It's crazy. Yeah. And then that sort of thing as well, and people jump to conclusions and one thing leads to another. The extremes you had to go to kind of clear his name that you shouldn't have to do that. Like you shouldn't have to do that.
Do you think he was better off coming out and putting that out there? Because like it is so extreme, and I think it did stop the talk.
Yeah, nipped it in the bud, like yeah.
But by God, his name was all over the media for a while.
Oh,
and
it was. Yeah,
it was all over every WhatsApp group, and we've even seen that like in different things with WhatsApp groups. There's some player, and I'm not going to name names, but a female player in the other code, and just there's photos flying around the place that aren't actually of that person, but people are just taking it as read that it is that.
Oh, people, that's it. But people just take no more than Peter Casey and whatever somebody thought was in his hand or was given to him. People just jump to one conclusion. They see what they want to see. And people like stuff. WhatsApp groups are so dangerous. Like the stuff going around there, and it's just taken as a given. Like
you know, like even something. If you look at professional sport, the Stephen Ward WhatsApp voice note about Roy Keane that went everywhere and was all over the newspaper. Like that can happen so easily.
Unbelievable. Forwarded on so quickly.
Because it's getting to the stage now where people don't really care about the consequence of what happens to someone else. You know, we've all had a situation where you're caught doing something stupid on a video, and maybe the club mates are sharing it around, and you're like, but if that goes public now, that could ruin you. And like reputations can be ruined so quickly, and that's why I wonder when you see people calling for elements of pay for play or more kind of grants or funding or whatever it is towards players. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but and first of all, I'd rather the money go to clubs than go to players, because the inter-county players are nothing without the clubs kind of feeding everything. So that'll be my viewpoint. But if you give more money to players, sort of moving more towards professionalism, and you're asking for more scrutiny.
Yeah.
Because you're creating that distance between the grassroots level and even the journalists and the players.
Them more, aren't you?
I think you're possibly putting people up on a pedestal to get shot at a bit more. So it's something that I think needs to be thought through before you just kind of pull the trigger and go down that route.
Definitely.
Just a final thing then on the Limerick Senior Hurling Championship. Patrickswell, they beat Doon, as I said. Kevin O'Brien with 1-3. Jason Gallan got a goal. Aaron Gallan was back. So he broke his jaw 6 or 7 weeks ago.
Fair effort, isn't it?
Yeah, so he was kind of named late to come back in. I mean, I'm sure they knew all week he was going to play. He scored 4. Keane Lynch scored a point. Dermot Burns scored 3. Just 6 points from play for Doon. That's just not going to get it done, especially against someone like Patrickswell.
That'd be an very interesting final now.
Yeah.
Especially if Gallan has another 2 or 3 weeks under his belt as well. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah,
final.
like Na Piarsaigh are just a star-studded team, and if they click, they're going to be hard to stop. But like not having Shane Dowling, when he's on his day, he can go to town.
Yeah, no, especially particularly at club level. Yeah, and you know he's gonna score 9 times out of 10 from a place ball as well.
Yeah, so that's it for the hurling club talk this week. If there's any other stories that you've seen or want us to talk about, make sure you send it in to us at ML Verney on Twitter or at Shane Saint, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube by clicking on that button just there.